You know what they say, a movie is only as good as its villain. Well, I'm not sure if anyone besides me actually said that, but I'm sure that the filmmakers behind Iron Man 2 are glad that there is no truth to that statement at all. Don't get me wrong, Iron Man 2 is not a great movie. It's not even a good movie. Iron Man 2 is just a passable movie. However, some of its biggest faults have to do with one core problem, which is its main villain. So, yeah, let's talk about the one and only Ivan. Not the gorilla from the new Disney movie. I'm talking about Ivan, aka Whiplash from Iron Man 2. So, yeah, the general consensus on this character is that he's pretty. What's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, that's the word. What's interesting about Ivan is that after rewatching Iron Man 2 again, I realized that I actually don't mind him as a character. Before, when I had watched Iron Man 2, I thought he was annoying and stupid, mostly because of his infamous My Bird scenes. But after rewatching the movie, I actually liked a lot of his dialogue, and he gives a menacing presence. The story itself just doesn't use him. He's not really important, and he doesn't do much in the movie itself. He probably spends almost 90% of his screen time doing nothing but creating armory and weapons. It's not very compelling as a character, or anything. The filmmakers had potential to make Ivan, aka Whiplash, a great villain, but they have the potential and they don't do anything with it. Overall, Ivan's motivations are pretty generic. They could have been expanded on, but overall, they're not even that good. So, pretty much, Ivan's father worked with Howard Stark to create the arc reactor, and then, after doing some things for selfish reasons, he was let go by Tony Stark. And so then he is living in poverty. He gets sick, he dies, and that makes Ivan angry. And so he blames the Starks for it. And so he wants to go kill Tony Stark now. Okay, we understand the motivations. They're kind of misplaced and not really compelling because we find out through Nick Fury later in the movie that Ivan's father wasn't a good guy, so how can we feel for Ivan whatsoever? We don't. We don't support him, and we don't even really understand him. He's just one of those bad dudes who are bad to be bad. And continuing on that subject, he has this goal to kill Tony Stark, and this should be a powerful goal that really motivates the story and everything, but it doesn't, because not only does the film not use Ivan for very much of the film, but it kind of is overshadowed by the fact that Ivan just kills people left and right. Not literally that often, but giving the example of the race car scene. When Ivan is heading towards Tony to kill Tony, he winds up hitting multiple other cars with his whips and killing the drivers of those cars. So, what's the difference between him doing that to Tony or to those people? And then he's also snapping necks and a whole bunch of other stuff because, yeah, Ivan is one of those bad guys who is bad to be bad. His motivations, his goals are suddenly irrelevant because he literally just kills everyone. So, should we care that he's trying to kill Tony specifically? Not really. I have to touch on the fact that there is a lot of great stuff and great stories in this movie. Like Tony's struggle with the government, who wants his technology in their hands. They feel like it's irresponsible to let him be in control of all of it, but he begs to differ, and he's actually right about it. And so you have that storyline, that constant struggle between him and the government, and whether or not he is responsible to own and keep all of these weapons and technology to himself. And then you have the other story where he's dying, and he doesn't really know his father very well, and his father's dead, and so he can't really get to know his father. And that leads to some pretty good emotional stuff, which also leads him to finding a way to save himself because his father left the blueprint to create the new element which he needs. And I could keep going into a lot of stuff about these great storylines, but this isn't really what I want to touch on because the main problem of the movie is Ivan, and that kind of overshadows a lot of the great stuff because there's just too much going on, and they try to balance it out, but it doesn't work. Either some things get left out, or some things just get tossed aside for later. It's not very coherent, but there is some good stuff, even though some of the editing, some of the scenes themselves don't work 100%. They are pretty good. Once again, Ivan, his story and everything just really drag this movie down to some point of low mediocrity that could have been saved had Ivan not even been in the film. But the last thing I need to touch on is the third act. So pretty much to put it plainly, the third act was trash. Okay, there was some good stuff. There was some good character interactions between Tony and Rhodey and Tony and Pepper. But it wasn't organically built up. There's really no purpose in the story for the third act to even exist. It's just Ivan continuing his goal to kill Tony Stark, which is already a pretty pointless and unnecessary piece of the story, which it's really not even a piece of the story. It's something that wasn't built up throughout the movie as important, and Ivan spent so long not affecting Tony Stark that to have this third act, it seems pretty pointless, and that's because it is. There's nothing meaningful that Ivan brings as a villain to the movie. In fact, he only has like 2 lines of dialogue, and those 2 lines are like his worst lines in the entire movie. There's nothing meaningful about this third act. It has some entertaining action, but that's pretty much it. Ivan does do a lot. He makes a mini robot army. He makes a giant suit. He manages to hack into Rhodey's armory suit. But none of that matters. We don't care. Because a good character, a good villain, isn't determined on what you do. It's about what your motivations are and how you do what you do and why you do what you do. Not simply doing something, because there's no real stakes there, and it leaves a pretty bland taste in your mouth after watching this movie. There's a lot of good stuff in this movie, but this third act completely drags it down to the final straw, and it doesn't ruin the movie, and there's actually some good conclusion after the final battle, but overall it just leaves this as one of the worst MCU movies. I'm Luke Filmboss, and I give Iron Man 2 a 69% in quality, a 71% in enjoyment, for an overall score of 70%.